Hey, Nanda. So, hello again, everybody. Did you have a nice day? Yes. Did anybody go to the lookout on the walk? Yeah? All right. Did you go the long way round, all down the hill and then back up again, or just the short way? I suppose you went the short way, right? I hope so, because otherwise the guide does not have compassion if you have to walk all the way down and back up. And how about the yoga class? Did you put them in the triple python or whatever? No, because I know you also have metta and compassion. So I hope even during the walk and the yoga you had lots of kindness and had some feelings of metta as well. So now I will do some more guided meditation for half an hour, and then we will try to answer these questions. Oh. Uh-oh. Okay. Well, I told you before that I did a retreat in Poland a couple months ago, and this is quite a lot of questions, but that was insane. That box was really like filling, and I did a couple 3 hours talks just to answer all the questions. I won't do that here, but it took so long. Also, they had a translator and everything. So I'm not going to ask you to raise your hand if this applies to you, but I suppose that even though I've already given you some ways to develop this feeling of kindness in meditation, that some of you still don't find the spark, still don't really know what I am talking about when I say metta. And in that case, remember also the simile of the ice cube that I gave in the beginning. But there's another simile that we might apply. Is there anybody here who plays golf? Yes, you play golf. Have you ever hit a hole in one? Yes. Do you hit a hole in one every time?
Oh, well, I once.
But if you play golf, you don't hit a hole in one every time. But for some reason, when we meditate, we think we should hit the hole every time in one go. And we often don't allow for it not to work. We think it should work straight away every time we sit down, that our mind should listen. But just like golf, not every hole, not every hit goes into the hole. It's the same with meditation. Not every time it will work. And when I was a young young man in my teens, when I was in high school, I used to work in the greenhouses in the Netherlands picking flowers all week long. And then, so it was quite a nice job actually, just picking the flowers. Very Dutch, with all the flowers that we have there. I'm from the Netherlands. And at the end of the week, on Sunday, because we worked 7 days, then I went to my boss and I asked him to pay me. And he was a really kind boss. He just asked you, how many hours did you work today? And you just said how many hours you've worked. And he said, oh, what is your hourly pay? And you just said what that was. And he always trusted you. So I did that every Sunday, and then he would pay me. Now, if you are a stupid worker, then you only go on work on Sunday, because that is the payday. And you might expect, if I only go to work on Sunday, then I will get paid every day. But, of course, you also have to work on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday, and Saturday as well. Otherwise, you don't get the same pay on Sunday. And it's the same with meditation. Sometimes meditation is like a payday, and it just really works. With metta meditation as well. Sometimes it feels like it might not be working, but those are just not the paydays. Those are just the days you're working and you don't get paid, but you will get paid another day. So, with that in mind, I want to try a little tiny different technique to develop that initial spark of metta. Because usually, once you find the initial spark, after that, it sort of takes off by itself. But people have some trouble often finding the beginning of metta. That's why I already gave you 2 different techniques. One is to imagine being with a friend, and the other was imagine being with an animal. Yeah? So now I want to do a third, and that is imagine being with a person you really respect, like a teacher, or for the Buddhists around here, I suppose you're not all Buddhists, but for those who are, imagine being with the Buddha. And imagine the Buddha sending loving thoughts to you. The Buddha being kind to you, or if you're not a Buddhist, some kind of person you respect, some kind of teacher, sending kindness to you. So that is a little guided meditation I will do now. And then we will do, hopefully get through all these. As always, please make sure that you sit comfortably. Meditation is supposed to be enjoyable. And if our body is not comfortable, then it makes it so much more difficult for meditation to be pleasant and enjoyable. So don't assume that the moment you sit down, you have the perfect posture for the rest of the meditation. No, instead, take some time to change your posture, change your cushions, your chair. Change the position of your legs and hands if you need to. Just get in touch with your body and ask it, what do you need to be more comfortable? It might be comfortable also to close your eyes if you haven't already. And please be kind to this body. Nobody's body is perfectly comfortable, but also nobody's body is out there specifically to harm you or cause you pain. It's just the nature of the body to be uncomfortable and sometimes painful. So we accept it, embrace it even. And through that attitude, you'll find that the body becomes more at ease. You can let go of any unnecessary tension in your body. Just let the body relax and become more comfortable. It'll never be perfect, but just relax it a little bit more if you can. Because by relaxing the body, we make it more unlikely that the body will interfere later with our meditation. It's like many of you came by car to this place. You parked your car in the parking lot, put it in park, took the keys out, and you know that your car is safe. You're not worrying about it. The same with the body. If we know the body is in a comfortable position and reasonably relaxed, we don't need to worry so much about it anymore. And we can let go of it more easily. And with your body relaxed, or at least as far as it will go today, just tell yourself that this is not the time to plan the future, worry about the world out there, or worry about anything at all. This is your meditation time. And right now, our focus can be on developing this attitude of kindness. And then later, we can worry about the future again if need be, but not now. Right now, we're just going to be here. in this hall, in this moment, here and now. In this morning's guided meditation, at the end, I told you all to imagine your heart like a little box with a door that you stored some love in. Now imagine opening up the door again, or the box again. And see if there still is some loving kindness left in there. See if you can bring this feeling up again in this way. If you are able to do this, you are already far along the path of developing the attitude of metta, of loving kindness. If you cannot do that yet, don't worry. And remember the golf simile as well. So now I would like to invite you all to imagine being in the presence of somebody you really respect, somebody who can be really kind to you, somebody whom you have no grudge with at all. And for the devout Buddhist among you, I suggest imagining being with the Buddha. I love to imagine the Buddha not as the statues that we see, but in his old age, an old wrinkly man with a bad back, but incredibly wise and kind. And imagine this teacher, this guide, or the Buddha being there only for you. They have their full attention on you. And they're looking you right in the eye. And they're smiling to you. And you know that this person has nothing but the best intentions for you. And wishes you only good things. imagine what it would feel like to be accepted in such a way, without any conditions. Unconditional love. Open up and allow this feeling of unconditional love to enter your heart. See if you can send this same feeling back toward your guide or teacher or to the Buddha. Just like they accept you without any conditions, without any demands, so you accept them as well. Full acceptance. When we do this kind of meditation, especially when imagining things, it always goes up and down a bit. So don't worry if the feelings of kindness disappear. Just try to bring them up again in the same way that you generated them before. You can also imagine the teacher taking care of you, giving you a hug, or is patting you on the shoulder, saying kind words to you. They're saying, I'll always be there to help you if you need a hand. And you're saying the same things back. I'll always be there to help you too. Now you might imagine your teacher standing up and departing from you to attend to others. But the feeling of total acceptance stays with you. See if you can locate that feeling inside. See if you can hold on to that feeling. And now direct this feeling of love towards everybody here in this hall. You fully accept everybody here, just as they are. Just like the Buddha would accept everybody here, exactly as they are. And we accept everybody without condition. One person was coughing and thought they need to walk out of the hall. But we accept them, even if they need to cough. It's okay. It's just a little sound, it doesn't matter. And now focus this feeling of acceptance, unconditional love on yourself. Imagine being like the Buddha or being like your teacher. Being able to accept yourself unconditionally. No matter what you've done in the past, no matter what you've achieved or not achieved. There's no need to be upset with yourself. Instead, be kind. To be kind is to be wise. Life is difficult. But we don't have to make it more difficult by being upset with ourselves. Instead, we face the difficulties of life with full compassion and acceptance of ourselves. Now we're reaching the end of this meditation. And I would like to invite you to, just like this morning, imagine your heart being a little box and storing the kindness inside. So that it is always there for you if you are in need. Keep this precious feeling safe inside. Whee! I mentioned during the guided meditation how to be kind is to be wise. And I really do believe that that is true. And when I said that, this thought came in my mind of a time when I was not wise, when I was being annoyed. Do you want to hear? So I was in the monastery, and I was the work morning, and I was assigned to clean the toilets, the showers as well in the monastery. And I was there cleaning the toilets, cleaning the showers, and what I saw in the shower cubicles, everywhere were little bottles and bars of soap and a mess. It was just all sorts of stuff laying around there. There were even bottles of shampoo. Monks don't need shampoo. And it seemed like every monk had their favorite bottle or whatever. But I thought, there is this one monk, and I am sure he is responsible for at least half this mess. And while I was cleaning, I was really getting upset and more annoyed with this monk. This monk was Venerable Upasama, and I can say so because what happened? I was getting more and more annoyed, and I cleaned all these bottles away. Put all the half, like tiny little bars of soap that nobody uses. I thought they were all Upasamas, he left them all lying around. So I cleaned it all up. And why can't Upasama clean after himself? And I don't know why I thought it was Upasama, but it's just in my mind, and I was getting annoyed. And this was really stupid, because it ruined my whole morning. But the next day, I was taking a shower in the shower block. And Venerable Upasama, he walked in, and he said, "Oh, thank you so much for cleaning all the soap and all the bottles. I always wonder why people leave that around, and I always wanted to clean it myself, but I never got around to." And then I thought, this was just an imagination in my head. It had no basis at all that it was Upasama who was leaving this all around. He was not leaving anything around. He was actually one of the cleaner monks. Then I thought, yesterday I was so stupid, being angry and annoyed for no reason at all. And I've done that more often in my life than just this, but this was a very specific example where I just straight away got corrected. Often we don't get corrected, and we just feel justified in being angry about something for which there is no reason at all, actually. And this is why being angry is actually being deluded, and being kind is actually being wise. And this is why, one of the reasons why developing this attitude of metta is such a powerful thing. If I would have that day that I was annoyed with the showers. If I would have done metta meditation in the morning before cleaning the showers, I'm pretty sure I would have never, those thoughts about upasana would never have crossed my mind even. I would just be happy cleaning. Oh yeah, I'll just clean this up. I'll be there for the monks. You know, everybody leaves their junk around from time to time. I myself do as well, by the way, so might as well blame myself as well. Anyway, I can go on like that forever, but then we'll never get done with all this. Not too bad, actually. Oh, why is there a nail in there? Maybe to pin the questions. Okay. Here we go. Question numero unos. It actually has a one. How do you not fall asleep during meditation? Well, perhaps that's what this nail is for. So whoever asked this question, you can borrow it. I'll put it here. No. Seriously, we don't do that kind of punishment, you know. It might work, actually. I feel a bit more awake now. So, there's many ways not to fall asleep during meditation. But one very good way, I find, is to make a clear distinction between meditation and sleep. When we sit down to meditate, we close our eyes and we relax our bodies. And this is very similar to when we go to bed. We close our eyes and we relax and we try not to think about anything. So often, especially when people are new to meditation, they start meditating and their mind and their body thinks, we close our eyes, we relax, it's time to go nappy nap. But meditation is not the time to go to sleep. So what you can do is before you meditate, if you know that sleepiness is a specific problem for you, you can instruct your mind and say, this is not the time to sleep. This is the time to be alert and awake. And if you tell your mind that, it will remember that this is not the time to fall asleep. And you might even tell yourself, I am probably gonna doze off in this meditation. I will be aware of that and try to avoid it. And then you will find if you do start to doze off, your mind remembers those instructions from earlier when you told yourself to not fall asleep. And you will quickly realize, this is not the way to go. And then it almost becomes like a fork in the road in your meditation. You're driving along the road and you have two choices. Do I go left or right? It's like you meditate and you have a choice. Do I fall asleep or do I stay awake? If you see the fork in the road coming in time, you can steer to the right side, to being awake. But if you don't see the fork in the road coming and you just mindlessly go to sleep, then it takes a long time to come back again. And that is actually a technique you can apply to all sorts of problems in meditation. To tell yourself beforehand, I have this specific thing that happens a lot in my meditation. So I will be prepared for that. Some people might think a lot about one specific subject in their meditation. You can remind yourself, this specific thing is always a problem for me. Tell yourself at the beginning of the meditation, I will be mindful of that. This is actually one way that the word mindfulness applies as well. Often people think mindfulness is just about being aware in the here and now. But mindfulness is also compared by the Buddha to a guard. And a guard who is ready to keep out problematic people out of the city. So mindfulness can be like a protector in your mind to keep out problematic states of mind. So that's one way to not fall asleep. And the other way is the nail. I normally practice letting go meditation, where I concentrate on a certain negative feeling or pain in the body and try to let go or make peace with it. Is this also a form of metta meditation? Well, in a way, it is. But why do you start focusing on a negative feeling? There's no need to do that. Why not instead focus on the positive? Yeah, the Buddha always said, meditation, we bring up feelings of joy. And one of the meditation subjects that the Buddha also taught was, for example, reflecting on our good deeds that we've done in the past, on our generous acts. Maybe you keep the door open. I don't even need to know how to open doors and fences anymore when I walk around here. People always open it for me. Mm-hmm. So some of you have done that. So that's a good thing to reflect upon, and you become happy when you reflect upon that. And I even see people smiling when I say it, because they realize it's a happy thing. This is the kind of thing to reflect on and make feelings of positive feelings instead of negative feelings. And you also say, I focus on pain in the body and try to let it go. But this is like jumping in the deep end when you don't know how to swim. Then you will probably drown. When I was taught how to swim, they always started with the shallow pools. So don't try to let go of the painful feelings in the body. Instead, as I said, try to relax your body and make it comfortable and focus on the comfortable aspects of the body. The body is always of the nature that parts of it will be uncomfortable, but also parts of it are always comfortable. It's never 100% one way or the other. So try to instead focus on the pleasant feelings in the body instead of the painful ones. What kind of meditation is this? Like if you focus on the negative feelings or painful feelings, and is it more beneficial than metta meditation? What kind of meditation is this? Well, Ajahn Brahm has a name for it, and it only makes sense to people who are into Buddhism, and it's called Anapanasati instead of Anapanasati. Anapanasati is the Pali word for meditation on the breath, which is another very common form of meditation. But Anapanasati is focusing on the painful feelings. And I told you before how I don't like the term patient endurance, because sometimes people teach you if there is pain in the body, just stay with it and endure it and learn from it. But I have never found that to be very beneficial. Actually, instead try to relax the body and find comfortable ways to sit. Some people using backrests, cross-legged, excellent. Some people using half the cushions from the cupboard, excellent. People using chairs, perfect. Make sure you sit comfortably and can relax your body. That is actually very beneficial, and that is being kind towards yourself. That is metta as well. How can one let go of somebody they are still in love with? What is the Buddhist way? Yeah, why you ask a monk? I suppose you mean love in like the attached way. But Buddhist love goes beyond that. If you really love somebody 100%, then you can let them go easily. Because then you allow them whatever happiness they wish. If you really love somebody and they say, I will be more happy with somebody else. And if you really, really wish them nothing but the best, then you say, sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Please go with somebody. somebody else. But that is very hard to do. Because it's not the love that is a problem, it's the attachment that is the problem. And that is why you cannot let go of the person. And the Buddhist way is to realize that everybody in our life is only there temporarily. We never know how long we've got together, but we do know that one day we will have to part. Perhaps you might stay with your loved one for the rest of your life, and I hope you do. But even then, at the end of life, you'll need to learn to let go. And the other day, just a couple of days ago, I went on a house visit for somebody whose partner was what do you call this? I can't find the word. Was diagnosed with terminal cancer just a couple of days before. And they thought they were gonna die. And I was there teaching them a little bit about the nature of life and about the fact that we all have to die. But that lady didn't want to listen to what I was saying. All she kept saying is, can you give me prayers so that he stays alive longer? And I could see the tears in her eyes, and she was really attached to her husband. Understandably, but it shows you that she was not prepared for this. And you cannot suddenly decide to become detached. It is a long practice. And some people find it very hard. But as Buddhists, we realize that it is the nature of life, that we have to, at some point, depart from each other. And sometimes that's not because of death, but just because our paths go a different way. I used to live with a girlfriend for a long time. 5, 6 years, we lived together, and then one day she said goodbye. And I wasn't sad. I can honestly say that. I was surprised and disappointed, but I was not sad because I just realized we grew apart. So now we go different ways. Also, I had very kind friends to support me, so that helped as well. What other kind of meditations do you practice and teach? Well, you can come to other retreats and learn, but I practice lots of meditation. But meditation on the breath is one that I do. And by the way, Metta is just one of 4 what we call heavenly abodes. Heavenly in the sense that they are really elevated feelings. There's also compassion, which is closely related to loving kindness. Also, the feeling of mudita, which is like rejoicing in other people's happiness. Seeing other people happy makes you happy as well. And then there's also the 4th one, which is the feeling of even-mindedness or equanimity. And all those things you can develop as well. And I just taught you about reflecting on good deeds you've done, which is yet another way to meditate. So I do many, many types of meditation. And if you have so many types of meditations from the start, it is very confusing. That is why I focus this retreat only on Metta, to teach you one tool to use. Like I often work in the monastery in the morning, not just doing the cleaning, but usually I do like the DIY stuff when we fix the gutters and all that kind of stuff. And I have a toolbox. I actually made much of the furniture for the new huts, like the beds and the shelves and stuff. I have a toolbox with all sorts of tools. Hammer, screwdriver, drills, wood planes. And I know which type of tool I can use for what kind of job. And it's the same with meditation. You can learn many tools, but you also need to learn when it is appropriate to use which kind of tool. And you also need to learn how to use all the tools individually. So don't rush and think, oh, I need to learn all the sorts of meditation. Better, especially if you're new to meditation, stick with one technique for a while and learn how to use it. Like when I have the wood planes, I need to learn how to use it first. And you don't learn that in one morning. You need to use it again and again before you can know how to use it properly. Same with meditation. Every technique you need to be familiar with, and then at some point, if you have all these tools, you sit down to meditate, not with the intention, today is 6 o'clock in the morning. 6 o'clock in the morning, I always do metta meditation, no matter what. Or in the evening, I always do breath meditation, no matter what. No. Instead, you sit down. This is what I usually do. Look at my mind. What is it like? And what do I need today? I told you before about the cook who knows exactly what dishes to cook for their master. And this is another aspect, actually, of mindfulness. The Buddha teaches mindfulness, not just be present in the moment, but he gives all sorts of different subjects that we can use. And he says, a wise meditator knows what is the right subject at the right time. Just like the wise cook knows what is the right dish at the right time. Yeah, if you only eat ice cream all the time, it's nice in the beginning maybe, but you don't become very healthy. You need to eat a variety of dishes. But for this retreat, we will focus on metta. So we do actually only get ice cream. Yeah! That's what I feel like. Metta is the best, I think. There's this, as a young man, I used to listen to lots of music. And one of my favorite albums of all time was a rock opera. Did you know there's also operas in rock music? There are. Actually, it was more like heavy metal rock opera. And this opera was about a man who was in a car crash, and then he got into a coma, and in his coma, all his emotions became people, and he saw them as people, and those emotions were all talking to him. And there were the emotions like guilt and anger, but there was also love. And when I was a young man, I was like, I really liked the rage character. He was like, rah! He was like screaming as they do in metal music, And I really thought, yeah, rage, rah, rah, rah. I even remember the lyrics. I'm not going to sing it to you. And there was also love, as I said. And whenever the character of love came into the play, you hear all the flutes music and the violins, and then she started singing. And I remember the lyrics. I am the strongest of them all. I am the strongest of all the emotions. And when I heard that as a young man, I did not understand what that was about. But now as a monk, I have learned love is the strongest of all emotions, and it can overcome all guilt and anger, and it can overcome all problems. And that is why metta is like the ice cream, the best of them all. And maybe tomorrow I'll talk a bit more about guilt and metta and those kind of things, or maybe there's a question about it. Hello, Ajahn. Hello. Could you please talk a bit about karma, how it works? I told you. Maybe there's a question about guilt in here, because that is how karma works. Often we think karma is some kind of mechanism existing in the world out there, as if there is some force in the universe that looks down upon us and see, that person hit their mother on the nose. In the next lifetime, I'm gonna give them hay fever as punishment. But that is not how karma works at all. Karma is not that mechanistic. Karma is what we do to ourselves. It is the forces that exist within our own mind. If we do good things, we become happy because we rejoice. over the things that we do. And because of those good deeds, we become happy. And for those of you who believe in rebirth, because we're happy, we grant ourselves a good rebirth. We think we deserve a good rebirth because we did good things. When we are at the moment of dying, we reflect back on our lives and think, I did good things. I deserve a good next life. But if we did bad things, then we will feel remorse and guilt. Then we will feel bad as a result. And this is how karma really works. It is not something out there, it's something in our own minds. We do good things, we become happy. We do bad things, we become sad because we feel guilty. And there was this little documentary I once saw as a monk, like a 10-minute thing or something, about people who nearly die and they have these out-of-body near-death experiences. Has anybody heard about those? Yeah, so usually people, they have those near-death experiences and they feel like they go to really beautiful places. But this was a man, and he talked about how he went to a really bad place, to a really dark place, a hot place, and he felt like people were all there punching him and tearing him apart. And he felt that he deserved to be there. And this was the shocking thing to me, because I realized he just created that himself because he thought he deserved it because of the bad things he did in his life. Yeah, and whether this was a real place or not doesn't matter. It's himself that sent him there. And this is how karma really works. And that is also explained in the suttas. When you read carefully, karma is very often related to people reflecting on their deeds and feeling happy or sad as a result. Dear Venerable, what made you become a monk? And how old are you? What made me become a monk? Well, the Sangha of monks ordained me, so they technically made me become a monk. And I made me become a monk because I asked them to. But, of course, that's not what you're asking. You're probably asking, why did you become a monk? And that is difficult to answer because I cannot copy my emotions into you. But, I cannot convey my emotions. But it basically was because of my meditation. I was always inspired by monks, actually, even when I was younger. My father and my mother, when I was younger, used to take me and my brother often on holidays to Belgium. And in Belgium, they have many Christian monasteries where they brew beer. And my father was a beer lover, or is a beer lover. So we always went to the monasteries so he could see how they made the beer and buy the beer and stuff. It's really like a big thing in Europe, the specialty beers. Probably is in Australia as well, but whatever. But I remember going there and not being interested in the beer, but interested in the monks instead. And one time we went to this abbey, and we went in there, famous beer brand, and the moment we stepped in there, the head monk who received us said, "Oh, you probably all came to see how we make beer here, but we sold our name to a beer factory a long time ago, and the factory is somewhere else, so now we are just a monastery. And I will tell you about the monastic life." And I was like, yes! I don't want to know about beer. Tell me about the monastic life. So I was always inspired by monastic life. But what really made me want to ordain was when my meditation and the results of that went so deep that I did not see any purpose in being a layperson anymore. So it was not so much about becoming a monk, but more about unbecoming a layperson to me. And how old I am? That is a very rude question to ask. Imagine that I was a nun, a lady nun, and you ask, how old are you? Ooh. No, I'm 36. Dear Ajahn, could you please exemplify, I think, how will it feel when it is a successful metta meditation? Thank you. Like this. You feel as if nobody can do anything to upset you. And you feel like life is full of beauty. Of course, you don't neglect suffering, but you are ready to face that suffering because you are ready to accept things as they are. Metta meditation, I said before, I don't know exactly how to translate it. Love is good, but acceptance is also good. And if your meditation of metta is successful, you are ready to accept anything that life might give you. Might accept anything that people might do to you. The Buddha gave a very extreme example of this. And it is called the simile of the saw. The Buddhist of you will definitely know, because it's such a famous simile. And the Buddha said, if your metta meditation reaches its peak, then even if you walk upon the road and robbers come and grab you and bind you to a tree and start cutting off your limbs one by one, then still you will have feelings of kindness towards them and do not feel a grudge. This is a very high standard. If you walk back home or drive back home and somebody robs you and binds you on a tree and cuts your limbs off, I don't hope that will happen, but if it does, and you're still kind and happy and like this, then it's definitely successful. But I don't expect that standard from you. That's all right. But you get an idea of what the Buddha was aiming at with that. Like, if people say nasty words to us, we are, okay, I understand you are feeling bad today. I accept you the way you are. How many questions? Okay, I was going to tell another story, but then we never get to the... okay. Then we never get to the end. And definitely with questions like this, we will never get to the end. Dear Ajahn, can you explain dependent origination? And can you explain non-self? Anatta. I can, but not today. Sorry. Question. What are the ways to deal with drowsiness, stupa, during meditation? And see? Well, one way is to realize that you are not alone. Often, when something happens in meditation, I feel so sleepy, I feel bad about that. Nobody else is sleepy. It always looked like everybody is perfectly enlightened. There's all Buddhas in this hall, and I am the one who is struggling. It does feel like that sometimes, doesn't it? But realize that that is not the way, and not all Buddhists in this hall. There's other people as well falling asleep. And that actually allows you to open your heart to the sleepiness and accept it. And that is another way to overcome sleepiness. It's actually true metta. When we are sleepy and we're like, go away sleepiness, I want to be awake. I'm not supposed to fall asleep. And this is like the angry demon that I told you about before. Get out of here. You don't belong. I should be awake and not asleep, because I am a good meditator. If you have that attitude, then 9 times out of 10, you'll just become more sleepy. Why? Why do you think that is? Because you're just investing more energy into fighting, more negativity. You're just spending more energy. And it is this lack of energy that is often the cause of sleepiness. So instead, open up your heart to sleepiness. I can be as sleepy as I want because I laugh with myself. And I can be as sleepy as I want. And you'll find, often you'll fall asleep for a little bit in meditation, and that's fine. Just let it be. See what happens. I very often had it that I was meditating, and the first 15 minutes I was just like, okay, I'm sleepy now. I'm just going to allow it to be. And nod off a bit. But suddenly the energy starts coming back. Because you just allow yourself to do nothing, be at peace. And that actually allows the mind to gather more energy. It's just like if you are running all the time, your body will get tired. So sometimes you just need to sit down and let the energy come back. It's the same with the meditation in the mind. Sometimes you just need the mind to relax. Yeah, when I turned around this box, all the little pieces of stuff fell out, so now it's a mess here. Just like in that shower block the other day. So that's why I'm trying to clean it up a bit. I don't know why. I should just leave it there and be kind to myself. I find myself falling asleep almost every time during meditation, even if I feel I have had enough sleep. Thank you. Well, try this. Try more metta meditation and see if you can arouse some positive feelings of joy as well, because that keeps the mind awake as well, something interesting to look at. Often meditation we sit down, nothing's going on. You might focus on the breath, breathing in, breathing out, breathing in, breathing out, here we go again, breathing in, breathing. And it's not interesting. It's just like when I told you at the beginning, Ajahn Brahm's talks, I thought they were very boring because my attitude was bad. But if you are like, breathing in, breathing out, I love sitting here, meditating, another breath. Lovely, I love being here. Will you fall asleep? No, because it's interesting and it's not boring. So that's already 3 ways to not fall asleep. I'll just repeat them. 1, remind yourself that sleepiness might be a problem. 2, just fall asleep for a while and let the energy come back. And 3, make meditation interesting and enjoyable. So try those. See if it works. Thank you for teaching us about storing the kindness. Could you please explain how to share the merit of meditation with specific or all beings? What is the benefit of sharing merit to the person sharing and the person receiving it? Well, the best way to share the merits of your meditation with other beings is by bringing the states of mind that you develop in meditation into the rest of your life when you actually interact with other people. I said before, we develop this feeling of kindness, and you said you store it in your heart. And then you store it in your heart so it's ready there for later when you interact with people. If you have metta, you can be more present with the person. You can connect with them on a deeper level. And also when people treat you badly, you can be there and be soft and kind to them. And that is the best way to share the merits of your meditation with others, by actually being there with them and showing how the meditation has made you a more kind person. And that is also the best way for sharing the merits with yourself as well. Yeah. Dear Ajahn, is the opposite of loving kindness meditation the death meditation? Should we practice the death meditation, and how often? Are there benefits? No, that's not the opposite of loving kindness meditation. So this is yet another meditation that the Buddha taught, is to reflect on the nature of life and that we will all die. And this does not have to be the opposite of metta meditation. Actually, it should always go together with the feeling of acceptance and metta. If you reflect on the nature of death and are like, oh, I don't want to die, I really hate dying, then that meditation, you cannot really look at the nature of life as it really is, because you're rejecting it. So, better way to do it is to have metta. Okay, I open my heart to life as it is. It's the nature of this body to pass away, and I accept it. But maybe death meditation is a little bit too advanced a subject to go into depth in this retreat. So to answer your question, should we practice the death meditation, and how often? I say, if you feel inclined to do it, you can do it, but at some point you just accept the nature of death, and then there's no real benefit anymore, I feel. It only goes so far, especially if you believe in rebirth, then at some point it's not really challenging anymore, because you're just, okay, I'm going to die and be reborn again, it's okay. So there are definitely benefits, because it teaches you to let go, and it teaches you also to be more present in the moment, because you don't know how long you're going to have, how long you'll be with your loved ones. So it teaches you to be more present with the people that you love, be more present towards yourself as well, and also be more kind towards yourself and others. I've got here a cup, and it's made out of ceramic. You see there's already a little piece broken here. And one day, some monk or person who cleans this cup will accidentally drop it on the floor. And the cup will break into pieces and shatter. And this is why, if I drink out of this cup, I need to be careful when I put it down, that I don't put it down here, because it will fall and break. I need to put it down here. However, this bowl is made of metal, and it will not break if I drop it on the floor. So I don't need to be that careful with it. You know, if I put it here and it falls, it doesn't matter. This is a simile for life. Life is breakable. We all here only temporarily. And this is why we need to care for each other. And this is a simile that Ajahn Chah made up, and I think it's quite beautiful. So that is another way how reflecting on death can actually give rise to metta as well. So it's not the opposite. It's actually very much connected to one another. Dear Bhante, it is known that with breath meditation, one can reach the level of jhana. What about the metta meditation? With metta alone, can one reach the level of jhana? With metta. That's what it says on the bottom, with metta. Yes, you can also. The breath is not what brings you into the jhanas. This is some deeper ideas for those of you who are new to meditation or new to Buddhism. You might hear some ideas like, what is they all talking about? So jhanas are very deep states of meditation that you can reach, but you don't achieve them through the breath, because when you do meditation of the breath, on the breath, at some point, the mind let go of the breath. And the breath starts disappearing and becomes replaced by feelings of delight and bliss. And those are mental feelings. You just feel happy inside of the mind. And this is a slow process. I'm just sort of skipping through it quite quickly. But these are exactly the same kind of happy feelings that arise from doing metta meditation. So yes, you can take metta into the deep meditations as well. But only at a stage where you let go of all this active reflecting, like I teach you how to imagine being with the Buddha, imagine being with an animal. Oh, by the way. Aww. Little puppies. I like them. But that is very active, that kind of reflection. To reach the jhanas, you will need to let go of that kind of reflection and just be with the feeling of metta by itself. And let it grow naturally and develop into joy. And then you can definitely go all the way. It's actually in the Mindfulness on Breath Sutta, the Anapanasati Sutta, not the Anapanasati Sutta, Anapanasati Sutta. The Buddha says, in this monastery, there are very well practicing monastics. That's like the monks and the nuns. And there is monastics who practice metta meditation. There's also monastics who practice compassion. There's monastics who practice the establishment of mindfulness. And there are also monastics who practice meditation on the breath. He actually gives a lot more, but he doesn't say that one of those is better than the other. He doesn't say meditation on the breath is better than metta. He actually gives them as alternatives. It's quite interesting. Often we think we always have to do meditation on the breath, but that is not what the Buddha says. It's very helpful as well, of course, but it's not the only way. Oh, this is a long one. Dear Ajahn, some comments on kindness and therapy. Kindness has a long history in therapy. In the 50s, Carl Rogers showed how the therapist warmth and unconditioned acceptance of the patients helped them heal. Oh, that's interesting. I never heard of that before. Recent approaches such as DBT or ACT, I know about ACT, that's like acceptance and commitment therapy. I've heard a bit of that. Explicitly teach people to be curious, accepting, and even willing towards unwanted emotional experiences, like the anger eating demon. Yes, they just stole all the Buddha's ideas. Actually, I think I read a little book about this acceptance and commitment therapy, and I think they actually started with a little thing on Buddhism. I can't believe, maybe I'm mixing things up now. Anyway, compassion-focused approaches teach people to adopt a kinder and more accepting stance to their own and others' suffering. Unfortunately, mindfulness approaches were introduced into psychology in limited ways. Non-judgmental present moment awareness. Yeah, I said that is a very limited way to think about mindfulness. It is good to see that slowly other aspects of the path are being incorporated into mindfulness, such as kindness, compassion, sympathetic joy, etc. Even sophisticated neurobiological approaches. You understand that humans thrive in relationships of care and kindness, in and out of therapy. Yeah, I've heard of that as well, that people who have kind approaches and good relations with others also live longer, which is quite interesting. So maybe you think, lunch tomorrow, should I take dessert or not? Maybe I'll get a heart attack if I take dessert. But if you practice your kindness, then it offsets all the dessert. No, I don't know. I'm not a doctor. But this is interesting, and I keep this aside to look up Carl Rogers. Yeah, and it's definitely true that acceptance, like in that acceptance and commitment therapy, is very important aspect. If you, not just in life in general, but also if you have mental problems, like if you have depression, you have to learn to accept it first before you're able to let it go. But often we intuitively want to push things away, push our depression away, push our traumas away. But like the anger-eating demon, that's the demon in the king's castle, that only makes things worse. And we have to open up first to the way we are. And do you know why that is? Why do we have to open up to ourselves first? I don't know if those Carl Rogers or whatever has any theories on that, because, but I think it is because if we don't accept the way we are first, we are not seeing the problem as it really is, because we are not really embracing the problem. We are not wanting to look at it, like, go away, I don't want to see the way I am really. I want to be somebody different. And if you want to be somebody different, you don't accept the way you are, you can't see what the real problem is. So therefore we first have to accept that you wouldn't even call it a problem, just accept the way we are. And then we can learn, and we can start to grow. This is always the case. You always get the same question again and again. Recently, I have been falling asleep when I meditate. Maybe my guided meditations are just really boring. I don't know, could be. It doesn't matter the time of day or whether I have eaten or not. Is this my mind telling me it's bored with the meditation object? Yes, possibly, and that's why I said earlier, make it interesting. Any ideas on how to deal with this? No. Thank you very much for your funny, insightful talks. Well, I don't know about that, but thank you. And well, I might as well give another piece of advice. Are you still able to follow all the pieces of advice about falling asleep? Because there's another one. When people organizing the retreat, they ask me, shall we turn off the lights when we do the guided meditation? And I say, you could turn them down a bit, but don't turn them off. And one of the reasons is exactly this. When I turn off the lights, you think it's nighttime. Time to go nappy nap again. So another way to stay awake is keep the lights on in your room, even if you do close your eyes. It somehow keeps you awake, just to know that there's light outside. And the Buddha also taught the perception of light is a way to keep awake. If you fall asleep, just imagine it's a bright sunny day, and it's middle of the day, and all the birds are chirping, and the sun is shining. And you feel more alive, you feel more awake. So those are some other ways. If there is another question about sleepiness in here, I'm not gonna answer it. We've already got plenty of methods now, okay? When walking around the stupa, those are those little statues we have here in the garden. Is it clockwise or anti-clockwise? One of the two is really bad karma. Really, you'll go to hell if you walk the wrong way. The other way, that is the best. No, it doesn't matter. You can walk either way. You can also walk left and right and left. Well, usually when we do walking meditation, we walk back and forth, and we don't walk around the stupa. But there is an official way to walk around the stupa, and it is with your right side facing the stupa. And I can remember that very easily, because that is my right shoulder has no robe on. That's what we keep towards the stupa. So that would be clockwise? Clockwise. That's the way we usually do it. But that's only because in the ancient text they was seen as respectful to have your right side towards the Buddha. But that was just an ancient idea, and it doesn't really matter. This is not a question. This is just a piece of paper. I like those. Dear Ajahn, Ajahn Brahm has said in the old forest tradition in Thailand, when he was a young monk. There we go again. No. Monks would meditate on the edge of cliffs, in high trees, on jungles full of tigers. Well, that's another way to keep awake. To sit on the edge of a cliff. If you fall asleep, the consequences will be dire. No, please don't do that. No, that was only in 1 or 2 monasteries where they did that. They didn't usually do that. It's only some silly experiments. There's no need to meditate on the edge of a cliff. Please don't go and do that. And also not in high trees. You're just not a good idea. The ones who survived said they got good meditation. Yeah, those who didn't survive, they must have had the bad meditation. Is he ever recommending the practice at Bodhinyana? So is Ajahn Brahm recommend us to sit on the edge of cliffs in jungle? No, not at all. And I think Ajahn Chah also never recommended it, as far as I know. It was just some monasteries where they did that. And as far as I know, not in Wat Pa Pong and Wat Pa Nanachat, where Ajahn Brahm was. He never said that he did it himself. Well, he might have meditated in jungles with tigers, but just because he had no choice. He didn't go purposefully looking up the tiger and prodding it. Tiger, I am mindful. No. We don't look up. We don't go and look for dangerous situations. Actually, it's very safe. We're in our huts. We close the doors. No snakes come inside. We don't need to worry about any tigers or kangaroos coming inside. Sometimes they put their nose in front of the window, the kangaroos, when I'm eating inside. And I eat in my hut, and often I have a bit of leftovers, and I just throw them in the forest. I eat mainly vegetables anyway and stuff, so that's okay for the kangaroos to eat. And they know the time of day when I come out, and they are ready. And this is one reason why I have to eat inside of my hut. I cannot eat outside of my walking path like this. I once tried, but the kangaroo just come and put the... and I have to push them away. So that is the most dangerous animal that we have here. So no, Ajahn Brahm doesn't recommend that, and I don't either. And the Buddha didn't either, actually. He just said, meditate in caves, in huts. This is nice. When we, as monks, we have this recollection on our, what we call requisites, on all that the monk needs to stay alive, stay safe. This is food, shelter, our robes, and if you are sick, some simple medicines. And in that reflection on the shelter, the hut, the Buddha says, it keeps you safe from rain, keeps you safe from heat, keeps you safe from animals. And it is only for the sake of seclusion. That's why you have the huts. And the Buddha actually did not even allow monks to stay in the forest the whole year long. Some points during the rain retreat, they have to stay inside huts. So the Buddha did not recommend that kind of thing. But it's funny that some people do it anyway. Dear Ajahn, could you please advise how to deal with people that their eyes are covered with thick layer of dust. Example of recently. He commented, I think it's a specific person, he commented about a co-worker body size in a not nice way, hoping that it would start a conversation, gossip. But I managed to keep silent. But unfortunately, not my internal thoughts. I kept thinking, why? Why does he need to say that? How would he feel if he ends up fat? Or his family members? Bad karma. It disturbs my mind and my feelings that afternoon, and I was upset for thinking like that. Frustrating. Thank you. Well, that's a very lively question. Thank you. And one way to think about that is to remember the angry crocodile. Yes, there were lots of stories about animals in India. And this is actually a modern story, but let's pretend that it was in India as well. There was in India a nice river where all the animals would go to drink. All the cows went there, all the tigers went there, and also the mice and the dogs all went there to drink. But one day, somebody came into the river, and it was a huge, big crocodile. And whenever any of the animals came even close to the river, the crocodile said, "Get away! This is my river. I don't allow you here." And he started biting the animals. I did this story also in Poland, and I had a translator. And I insisted that they do all the rahs as well. And you quickly learn which are the shy translators and which are not. But yeah, that was really funny. Anyway, get out of my river. And the animals were all afraid. This crocodile, he treats us very badly, and it's not fair. We need to drink as well. And all the animals were really upset with the crocodile that kept biting them. But there was one little tiny mouse. And one day, the crocodile was sleeping. And the mouse saw that the crocodile was sleeping. And trippity, 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 trip, he went to the crocodile. And he went right into the mouth of the crocodile while he was opening up. And what did the mouse do? He put his arms around one of the teeth of the crocodile. And he pulled it out. And then the crocodile was awake. And he said, thank you so much, little mouse. That tooth has been hurting me for years. And it kept me so annoyed. And that's why I was always trying to bite all of you. And that's why I was so angry. And ever since that day, that the toothache was gone, it was no longer the angry crocodile. It was the Metta crocodile. And he no longer ate any of the animals. He became a vegan. And, and only ate vegetables from that day. And from that day, all the animals were drinking together in the forest. And they were not upset with the crocodile anymore, because they understood that the crocodile was hurting inside. He had a bad toothache, and that's why he was so angry. So they now had compassion to the crocodile and said, it's okay that you were angry. We understand. It's really bad to have a toothache. And they all live happily ever after. And your co-worker also has a toothache. Not a literal toothache, but they have some aches in their mind. They don't feel at peace with the world, at peace with themselves. And that's why they feel they need to lash out at other people. Rah, you are fat, as you said in the question. Because that makes them feel better. But it's because they have some pain inside. People who are happy and kind never lash out at other people. So this is one way to deal with people like that, to realize that they are hurting inside, and to, with wisdom, embrace those people as they are. And then you show the good example. Yeah? You be like the wise mouse. By being kind to that person, maybe you can take a little bit of that ache away. Like the mouse took the bad tooth away. Who knows? If you go and shout back to that person, you're even fatter. You know, your mama is so fat, or whatever. Then you'll just make the problem worse. So instead, be kind. And then again, that little box in the heart comes into play. Yeah? Be prepared. Have the metta ready for situations like that. It's really hard if you're not prepared to suddenly be kind out of nowhere when somebody treats you badly or a coworker badly. You need to be prepared. That's why we do meditations like this. Thank you for your Dhamma and guided meditation. I think you did pretty well. Pretty well, okay, good. So, so I am calling you Ajahn. All right, Ajahn means teacher. I hope that Ajahn Brahm and BSWA will organize a 5-day retreat for you to lead. Okay. Your stories have a mixture of personal experiences and these from the text, spiced up in action and sound effect. That's not a question, but here's 2 questions. Thank you for that comment. It's very kind of you. But, you know, one reason that I can give talks and just do silly things like raw is that I don't really care what you think about it, my talk. If they end up being bad, then great. Then I don't get invited again, and I don't need to teach again, and I can just stay in my hut and meditate. If they end up being good, then great. I can teach you something, and I can be of benefit. So, in that way, I don't worry about the future. Yeah? Whatever happens. You praise my talks, I accept it. You blame my talks, say they're bad, I accept it. This is also kind of metta, actually. I'm kind to myself, kind to my talks. Whatever is the result, it's okay. I accept the future. I accept whatever happens. This is also why metta is such a wonderful way to worry less about the future. How and why did you become a monk? We had that question already because of my meditation. If meditation is about non-thinking, can it also be about thinking? Let me think about that. Metta meditation is in fact meditation on a feeling of kindness and love. And thinking something of thoughts. Spreading outwards into the universe, right? Well, that's how it starts. I told you before that metta meditation you can compare it to lighting a fire. In the beginning, you rub the fire sticks together, try to light the fire, find the sparks, and then it's really active in the beginning when you try to develop this feeling of metta. But if metta becomes strong, it becomes self-sustaining. And you don't need to do anything anymore. You don't need to do these reflections anymore, like being with a person you love, being with the Buddha, being with puppies, being with teddy bear. No, metta becomes the self-sustaining feeling, and actually it becomes automatic, and you can't help being full of love. One rains retreat a couple years ago, Ajahn Brahm invited me for an interview. And he always invites all of the monks and people in the monastery during the rains retreat to interview. And he actually calls it the interrogation chamber, his hut. Sunyo, you come to my interrogation chamber this afternoon. Because he just wants to keep track of how we're doing. And he's just joking, he's not interrogating us. He's just there to help us. And to check if everything is going okay, so he can keep track of the monks, especially the junior monks. When I was a couple years ago, and I came to him, and he looked at me and said, you've been doing lots of metta meditation. And he could tell that I had been. And I told him, yes, because I couldn't help it. Ajahn Brahm often teaches you to sit down and just let things happen. Let it be. When I sat down that meditation retreat, that rains retreat, I just sit down and let things be, and the metta just came by itself. Because I practiced it so often in the past. It was just a natural thing. It wasn't something that I needed to force. When I just let go of all the thinking during that rains retreat, just relax, and this feeling of kindness and love came up naturally. And when I told Ajahn Brahm that, he said, good. Or I think that's what he said anyway. Yeah. So that is how meditation on metta can develop as well. It is not something you need to force, ideally. It can become a part of your character, and it can become a natural part of the meditation, something that actually happens when you let go and when you don't do anything. And the mind naturally gravitates towards that happiness and kindness. Dear Ajahn, could you please talk about how we Westerners have difficulty, sorry for sometimes reading slowly, it's just that I can't sometimes not read it properly. Dear Ajahn, could you please talk about how we Westerners have difficulty being kind to ourselves? It feels selfish to do so. Thank you. Well, I don't think that's a problem specific to Westerners. I think as everybody sometimes has difficulty developing kindness towards themselves all over the world. So I'm not going to go into why it is specific to Westerners, but why have you so much trouble to feel kindness towards yourself? It's a good question, actually. Why? Maybe you should ask yourself that question. Why is it so difficult to feel kindness towards yourself? Sometimes when I teach meditation and other things, Dhamma talks, I ask the audience, please raise your hand, any of you, if you are a perfect human being with no flaws at all. So I'm going to ask you that now. Please raise your hand if you are perfect and never done anything wrong. Come on. Don't feel shy. Okay, please raise your hand if you are imperfect and you have flaws. Everybody lifting their hand. And if you don't lift your hand, then you just have fallen asleep. Now, all those people raise their hand that they are not perfect. Please, now also raise your hand if you allow those other people to be not perfect. See? All those hands that are up, or were up, they all raise their hand, and they all allow everybody here to be non-perfect. So why is it so difficult that we don't allow ourselves to be non-perfect? Everybody else allows you to be non-perfect. You just all gave me permission to be non-perfect, so I can give a really bad talk, be super boring. You allowed that. And I allow you to, I don't know, fall asleep during your meditation. So why don't we allow that from ourselves? Well, the answer, I think, is because we are so demanding. And maybe this ties into Western culture as well. We're so demanding all the time. You go to school, you have to get high grades, otherwise you're bad. And you go to work, you have to earn a lot of money. If you are rich, you're a better person than a poor person. To me, that's all really silly. Intelligent people are not better people. Rich people are not better people. Often homeless people are some of the wisest and kindest people I know, the poor people. But we demand of ourselves that we are successful in life, that we have the beautiful partner, the beautiful house. And I'm sure you all have beautiful partners, by the way, for those of you who are married. But we all have to have the fast car. That's just like this idea that society gives us. Like, you're happy if you have lots of stuff. So we become demanding. And that also comes back into our meditation. We get demanding of ourselves. We should be happy. We should be kind. We should this. We should that. A Buddhist should not be angry. I am a bad Buddhist if I am angry. Not first meditation retreat I went into, but one of the first I did in England with Ajahn Munindo, is an English monk. And he taught me something very useful. He said, as a Buddhist monk, still sometimes I get angry, he said. And sometimes when I think, I'm a Buddhist monk, I shouldn't be angry. I just get more angry. Because I'm like, why am I so angry? And I get angry with being angry. So sometimes I just allow myself to be as angry as I want. Even though I'm the abbot of this monastery, I can be angry. I don't need to be this figurehead, this idealistic monk. And when I allow myself to be angry, it disappears much more quickly. So he's not demanding of himself some kind of image of the perfect head monk of the monastery. And if you don't demand things of yourself, then it's much more easy to be kind towards yourself. And maybe I'll talk a bit more about that kind of stuff tomorrow. Dear Bhante, one hard thing to develop metta meditation for me is when you say things like, I'll be there for you always. I start thinking about it. How can I be there always for someone? For example, now I'm in retreat. Oh yeah, okay. You can't be there always for someone. I mean that in metaphorical way. Like, I'll be there whatever you do. I don't mean always as in time, but always as in any kind of circumstance that you are in. If you have a toothache, like the angry crocodile, I'll be there to pull it out for you, even if you might bite me. I will be there through thick and thin, as they say. That is what I mean by always being there for them. I don't mean that you have to be around them 24/7. That probably annoy them. So don't do that. Yeah, and as I said, I'm just a guide, in these guided meditations. You can follow whatever instructions are helpful and pick out the little bits and pieces that help. I cannot give a meditation that's perfect for everybody, so I just give little bits of ideas that you might pick up on. Next question. We're going quite quickly, so that's good. I think we'll make it. Unless you all seem pretty awake right now. You all have problems falling asleep, so maybe I should just keep going until 12 o'clock. No, I try to finish in half an hour or something. how can I teach my 9-year-old son to be more mindful and calm? Yeah, that is probably very, very difficult. He struggles with self-regulation and gets angry and fights with his brother a lot. And I struggle to help him. Any suggestions? Well, I am not a parent, so it's hard for me to answer that. I don't have experience raising a child, but some of you do. And do you recognize that 9-year-olds can be very unmindful and very uncalm? Yes, see some people nodding. That is the nature of children, of many children anyway, that they are very energetic. They are discovering life, and they are growing in their body, still have lots of energy. Some of you are getting old and your energy is dissipating. When you are a young child, you have lots of energy, and you still need to learn a lot. I recently learned that children can be more deregulated in their emotions because their brain is not developed fully yet. And like they call it, I'm not a brain scientist either, not a parent, not a brain scientist. What else was I not? There were many things I'm not. I'm just a Buddhist monk. But they said that the prefrontal cortex wasn't fully developed in children yet. So they're more emotional and they're more prone to outbursts. And so you just recognize, this is the nature of my child, to be that way. And I will be there for him, regardless of whether he is mindful and calm or unmindful and restless. It's like the angry demon again. If you say, child, you should not be that angry, you should be mindful and calm. Sit down and meditate for half an hour and be enlightened tomorrow. If you're like that, they will just object and be like, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to be even more angry now. And just like the angry demon, we just kept growing and growing. So the best thing to do is be kind and be an example. And parents are like role models for their children. But it only often comes to the fore. They often grow into their parents only later in life, not when they're 9-year-olds. Maybe when they're in their 20s and more developed, then they suddenly start realizing all the things you taught them when they were younger. The examples you set when they were younger. All the examples you set by being kind and compassionate, regardless of what they did. And when they're older, they'll realize, I see the wisdom now, actually, in my parents. When I was younger, sometimes I thought, my parents just, the stupid things they're saying, they don't know. They don't understand me. But now I look back and they knew perfectly well what was going on. So, don't be in a rush to change your son. Also, people come into life with different backgrounds. As Buddhists, we believe in rebirth, and sometimes kids are different than others. And sometimes it's hard to change people's nature, and you just accept that they are the way they are. Of course, when they're angry with their brother and they start fighting and hurting them, then it's really a moment to step in and say, this is bad to hurt them. But if they're just sometimes a bit angry and stuff, that's just the nature of people. That's just my reflections as a non-parent. Maybe you can do something with that. But also talk to other parents, they know much more about raising children than I do. Can you tell us about some good guided metta meditations on the internet? Well, I told you about Venerable Kema before. Aya Kema, Ayya space Khema. I don't know if they're on the internet, but they probably are. But These talks will also be on the internet at some point. If you like my guided meditations, I don't know, then you might find these there as well. You can just Google like guided meditations, Metta, and you'll find plenty, and you'll find something that resonates with you. All right, let me be kind to myself and have a little drink. Carefully put the cup down, so don't break it. What is the best way to be kind to yourself and your work? The best way to be kind to yourself is to realize that you don't need to change. That you are already perfect as you are. To accept the way you are. And you might think, as a Buddhist, shouldn't we improve ourselves? Isn't there a path that we should practice and become better people? Well, there is, but this path is actually the path of acceptance and love. So it's a bit counterintuitive, but by accepting the way that we are, we actually start changing. So that is the best way to be kind to yourself. And to be kind to your work is actually, depends on your work probably, but I got a little example when I was a student and I really wanted to become a monk at some point, but I still had to finish my master's degree. I was halfway through my master's degree in mechanical engineering in a university in Delft in the Netherlands. But as you asked me before, why did you become a monk? Because of my meditation and what results from that. So I went up to my parents one day, really convinced I want to become a monk. So I went to them and said, Mom and Dad, I'm going to become a monk. And I'm stopping my studies and going, I don't know where, but I'm going to become a monk. And they said, no. No, we don't allow you to become a monk. At least finish your studies first before you become a monk. At least do that for us. And then, although before I decided to become a monk, I really loved engineering and I wanted to become an engineer. After I decided to become a monk, it became more difficult to focus on the classes of engineering because I didn't want to be an engineer anymore. Until I changed my mindset and decided, I'm not doing these studies for myself anymore, this master's degree. Now I'm doing it for my parents, not for myself. And surprisingly, or actually not surprisingly, my grades shut up. I was so much more able to focus on my studies. And while earlier I used to really be a procrastinator, always leave all the studies and work until the last moment, then I really became a model student, always handing in all the assignments beforehand, discussing things with the professors, because my whole attitude changed. I realized I was doing this for a greater purpose, for my parents. And also I started including my professors as well. Like they want to see their students graduate. They don't want to see their students shave their head and run off to a monastery and fail their master's degree while they're almost finished. Actually, I still had a year or something to go. So I decided, I'm doing this for my professor as well. And the same with your work. If you are going to work every day and I'm making money for myself, then it'd be very hard. Maybe reflect on it. I'll do this work for other people. It may be your family. It may be your boss. It may be more people in general that benefit from your work. That is one way to be kind when you're working. Do it for others. Does it make some sense? By the way, I did shave my head already when I was a student. And this was really funny, because I used to have hair this long, like metalhead, headbanging. And yeah, it looked a lot like you, actually, your hair. And very curly and stuff. And that's how everybody used to know me. And just a couple days before my final presentation, I shaved it all off. And went basically bald, just short like this. But before I did, I asked one of my friends to take a picture of me pulling on my hair like this, pulling it out almost. And I put that picture in my final presentation. And I presented it like this. Oh, I did all the calculations, and then I had to design this machine. And I got really annoyed. Look. And then I put that picture of me. And I said, that's why now I look like this. And I blamed it on my professor for giving me that the difficult final assignment. And everybody was laughing. And my professor said, you are a clown in disguise. And he gave me a 9 for my presentation because he thought it was really funny and something different. And that brings us to our next question. Do you know any good jokes? Do we have time for jokes? Do we want a joke or do we want a question? Okay, we want a joke. My favorite joke is the one of the pirate. And there was this happened in Hollywood. And there was a director of the Pirates in the Caribbean movies. So they went to film the next Pirate in the Caribbean movies, or what is it called? Pirates of the Caribbean, with Johnny Depp. But Johnny Depp was not available because he was in his court case. And so they needed another pirate to fill the role of Johnny Depp. And the director went looking through town, and surprised, at this cafeteria, he saw a man who just looked perfectly like a pirate. He had the wooden leg, the hook, and he even had the eye patch to top it all off. Maybe try. He even had the eye patch. And the director was like, wow, it must be perfect. I need him for the Pirates of the Caribbean movie. Let me interview him. So he went to sit down next to the pirate, and he said, wow, you look like a pirate. Arrgh! Yes, I am a pirate, matey. And a bottle of rum. Arrgh! And the director asked him, wow, how did you get that wooden leg? Wow, matey, we were sailing in the Caribbean when suddenly I fell overboard and the shark, it bit my leg right off. Arrgh, and that's how I got that wooden leg. And the director said, wow, that's quite a story. How did you get that hook? And the pirate said, rah, matey, that's another story. We were sailing in the Mediterranean Sea, and we got boarded by another pirates. And they came on the ship, and one of them, they cut my hand right off with their sword. And that's how I got that hook. Arrgh. Ah, wow, because you got boarded and your hand got cut off. Yes. Yes. Wow, that's a good story. Now tell me, how did you get that eye patch? Arrgh, you matey. You got getting more drunk and drunk as they were talking. That's another story. We were sailing in the Strait of Gibraltar, and I hear the seagull. So I looked up, and it pooped right in my eye, flat. And the director was, well, that doesn't necessitate an eye patch, does it? "Rawr, matey, but that was just one day after I got that hook." And that tells you the importance of being mindful, even if you're pirates. I really like that story, it's because it's so visual. All right, better move on now. Yeah, it's funny. Even that retreat in Poland I did a while ago, they also asked, do you know any jokes about monks? And even specifically, do you know jokes about monks? And I'm like, nah, I'm not a joke machine. Sorry about that, I don't know jokes about monks. So I started reading out the next question. And in the middle of the translation, I do know a joke about monks. Why can monks not vacuum in the corners? No attachments. Okay. This is a cheeky question, says the questionnaire. I go to the Cambodian temple in Skamskat with Venerable Kassapa, going to Thailand this week. Yes, I know. He's leaving soon. Are you able to come occasionally to give Monday night talks? I'll think about it. That's Ajahn Brahm's advice to these kind of questions. Don't say yes or no, say you'll think about it. Sometimes you need to learn to say no in life. And it's often more difficult than saying yes. It's so easy to say yes when people ask something of you, actually. Sometimes it's difficult to say no because we feel like we disappoint people sometimes. At one point, Ajahn Brahm Mali said to me, if you become a more well-known teacher and people like your talks, you'll get lots and lots of requests to teach here and there. And better you learn to say no when you're still a young monk. Otherwise you get very busy and it distracts from your monastic life sometimes. So I'll think about it. I have a medical condition that has me feeling sick and tired a lot of the time. It is apparently curable, but can be very difficult to cure. I've had it for about 4 years, and I have a lot of hatred towards myself for not being able to cure it. So how can I be kind to myself in this? It's so hard. Yeah, of course it's gonna be hard if you have medical condition, because it influences your life on every front, especially if it's something that makes you feel sick and tired all of the time. So it's only natural that you feel that it is hard. And this is the first thing to realize, to start being kind to yourself in this. To realize that it is actually hard. And it's okay. You sometimes feel a bit desperate about this. You don't always need to be the happy Buddhist. Just like Ajahn Munindo didn't always need to be the perfect abbot of the monastery who was always kind. Sometimes he allowed himself to be angry. And sometimes you can also just allow yourself to feel a bit sad and feel that it is hard to be sick. That's all okay. But are you 100% sick? Is every part of your body sick? If that was the case, you wouldn't be able to write this question. You wouldn't be here. You would be lying all tied up in a hospital bed if every part of your body is sick. And even people who lie in the hospitals, none of them are 100% sick. There's always only parts of our body that are sick. And why do we only focus on the sick parts of the body? There's also healthy parts of the body as well. So don't forget about that. Don't get stuck on the sick aspect of you. Realize that there's still many things that you are able to do while you're able to come to this retreat. It's just such a fortunate occasion. And I don't say that because I'm teaching, but just because this is such a wonderful place. You're here with all these wonderful people. And that is so fortunate. Despite your sickness, you can still do that. So just realize that as well. Don't only focus on the sick part of your life. There's also healthy parts of your life as well. And another way to learn how to deal with sickness and maybe even cure it is actually through this metta meditation as well. It is very, very powerful. And you will all know about the placebo effect. That when they give people a kind of medicine that is actually not medicine at all, but just sugar pill or something, but if people believe that that will cure them, then it often does cure them, or at least helps in curing them. This is just scientifically studied so often. There's so many examples of where people get healthy just because they think they are being treated by a doctor. Yeah? It's even the case that if people get given the placebo medicine by a doctor in a coat with his glasses on and his, what do you call that, hard-sounding thing, when they look very professional and they gave the pills personally, and the pills are more effective than when they are just put on your nightstand and you just take them yourself, because you believe the power of the doctor. And this is all in your mind, in your heart. It's all your own power to cure you. This is nothing in the pill, it's in the mind. And metta meditation can help with this as well. It can help, perhaps not fully cure your disease, but I'm convinced that it at least can alleviate it a little bit. And how do you do this? Everybody should pay attention to this, because we all get sick from time to time, right? This is another thing to realize, that there's nothing wrong in being sick. You didn't do anything bad to become sick. This is the nature of all of us, to be sick from time to time. Or has anybody here never been sick? Please raise your hand if you've never been sick, even not a little bit. You see, everybody's been sick. And I don't often get sick, but I got sick a year or two ago. And I got this really bad nasal infection. It's probably nothing compared to your thing, so I don't want to diminish your condition. But for me, this was pretty bad. Because my whole right side of my face, I felt my heartbeat like just pumping, like boof, boof, boof. And the snot was just constantly dripping out of my nose. And my eye was just tearing all the time and pricking. I can still imagine it was a bad headache, my nose, my eye, everything was hurting. And it was lasting for a long time, a whole day. And at the end of the day, I was so frustrated with this feeling. And I was like, I'm going to go to bed, and hopefully, maybe in the morning it might get better. Who knows? But then I realized, I'm a Buddhist monk. And Ajahn Brahm often teaches us about treating meditation or treating illnesses with meditation. So I'm going to try it. I'm going to try what Ajahn Brahm teaches us. And what I did was sit there with the sickness, and instead of acting annoyed like, I shouldn't have that boof, boof in my head, I was just like, boof, boof. And the dripping nose, the pain. I accept it all, fully. My heart is open to that feeling. It's a part of life. And I just opened my heart to it. Started generating feelings of kindness to it. And I realized the kinder that I was, and the more accepting that I was, the more I was able to look at it as it really was. And the more kind I was, the less painful it became. I realized that loss of the pain was actually because of me being annoyed and angry. That anger and annoyance presented itself physically as pain. So the headaches and all the pains in my face started becoming less, and I was able to focus better on the feeling. And I can't explain this any other than at some point I just went right into the center of the sickness. And as I did, it exploded. I can't explain it in any other way. And when it exploded, it was just gone instantly. And I knew that I had cured it with meditation. And this is just, as I said, probably nothing compared to your disease, just my nasal infection. But I'm 100% sure that I cured it with meditation. And only a couple of weeks later, Ajahn Brahm told a story about how his teacher, Ajahn Chah, once had double malaria. And he was in a poor part of Thailand. I think it was double malaria, or malaria and yellow fever at the same time or something. He was really, really sick. And he was in a poor part of Thailand. And he did not get any access to any medicine at all. No painkillers, no malaria medicine, nothing. They were lucky even to get some food. So what did Ajahn Chah do? Instead of complaining about it, he sat down in meditation and he focused on the sickness. And I was so surprised when Ajahn Brahm told us this. He told us what Ajahn Chah told him. And he said, Ajahn Chah said, that he went right into the center of the feeling, right into the center of the sickness. And when he went into that sickness, poof, it exploded. And Ajahn Brahm used the exact same words that I had used earlier to describe to myself the way I cured that sickness. And as I said, I only cured a small sickness. But I fully believe that Ajahn Chah cured his malaria with his meditation, because I've done something similar, although in a smaller way. Now, I'm not saying that every disease is curable in that way. You know, sometimes we just get sick and there's nothing we can do. But give it a shot. It may help. Yeah? Kindness helps. At least, if it doesn't cure the disease, at least your attitude towards it is better. All right. Dear Venerable, during meditation, whenever my mind notices that it's going into a deeper state, that state stops going further. Please advise how to train the mind to remain calm and neutral during our meditation. Thank you. Right. Well, there might be different things going on, but by your question, I would say that it is probably exactly that you're noticing that you're going into a deeper state. You're sitting there, your mind is getting more peaceful, and you're like, I'm getting more peaceful. I'm getting more deep. And as soon as you start thinking that, or even realizing that, you disturb the peace, because you start reflecting on it, rather than just feeling it as it is. So my advice would be to stay calm and neutral, is to actually just stay with the feelings of peace, and not to have like commentary going. Yeah? Like when they have these soccer games or whatever, they're always commenting on what's going on. And they pass the ball and blah, 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 and they score. Oh, what a great goal. It's all commentary. And sometimes we do meditation in the same way. How peaceful. Yes, he is so peaceful. It's a great meditation. And if you do that, you disturb the peace. So instead, when you watch the soccer, just turn it on mute. And when you meditate, just turn your mind on mute as well. Dear Ajahn, I find my mind is quite clear. there's some word there. It's quite clear when I pause and close my eyes, sort of blocking out the external stimulants. Sometimes being so clear is not helpful in that I find fault or go into granular details. What advice would you give when that happens? I find my mind is clear when I pause and close my eyes, so that's good. Just be clear and be peaceful, sort of blocking out the external stimulants. Well, it depends on how you block it out. You know, if you just close your eyes, it's not really blocking out, you just allow whatever remains, you know. Sometimes being so clear is not helpful in that I find faults or go into granular details. Well, one thing sometimes happens when our mind becomes more clear and it starts to gather more energy, and suddenly we think, or we naturally start applying that energy straight away. Our minds become more bright, more alert, more awake, and it's a natural habit that when the mind is bright, we think we need to apply that energy to something. So you start focusing on granular details and start reflecting on anything just because you have the energy for it. Yeah? It's just like when your body has a lot of energy, you feel like you need to move around. It's like your mind has a lot of energy. Sometimes you think like you need to use that energy straight away. Maybe you don't think that verbally, but that is just the habit that you have. You need to learn to be both energetic and calm. It's actually quite a hard thing to do. Sometimes the mind becomes so energetic, it's like you can't handle it. It's so much joy and peace, you just can't help doing something. But the best way a way, not the best way perhaps, to deal with that is to use the same method that I gave before about sleepiness. You tell yourself, this meditation I might get sleepy, I will be aware of that and try to prevent it and go the other junction in the Y section. Instead, you tell yourself, I often become very focusing on the details and become restless when I find a certain amount of peace. Tell yourself beforehand, that might happen. And when that happens, this time I will go the other way. And I will try to remain peaceful, even though, as you say, what did you say again? Your mind is quite clear. Yeah? Or too clear, you say, even. Being too clear is not helpful. Well, maybe that is exactly what is going on. You're actually becoming clearer, but you're not learned yet how to keep the clear mind also peaceful. It's like you become more stronger in your mind, and you need to learn how to tame the mind as well, both strong and peaceful. And that is just a process that takes time. But remind yourself that it is possible. I feel comfortable sharing. If you feel comfortable sharing, why do people always want to know this? What led you to becoming a monk? Oh yeah, that question 2 times already. What challenges did you face in the transition to monastic life? I really wonder, why are people so interested in why I became a monk? Maybe secretly they want to become a monk or a nun as well. And they just need me to tell them why they should. This is often when people ask that question, that they want to secretly, maybe part of them wants to become a monk as well. But people, or none, people become a monastic for different reasons. And I'm not going to validate your reasons. But my reasons, as I said, I can't really go into too much detail, but was because of the depth of my practice. Yeah, let's put it like that. What challenges did you face in the transition to monastic life? Well, in the beginning, I found it hard to not see my parents, because I had a real close connection with my parents. I still do, but in a different way now. And that was probably the most difficult part, that I had to let them go. But in general also, you become a monk, you have to let go of a lot of stuff, and especially of what we call sensual stuff, all the worldly things, like music and partying and that kind of stuff I was into. But that was actually surprisingly easy to let go. But occasionally it still came up, and occasionally that was difficult. But generally, it was actually surprisingly easy. Maybe the most difficult part actually was keeping the robe on. So it doesn't fall off all the time. You've already seen me do this all the time. Just keep the robe on. No. Yeah, what was the most difficult part? I don't know exactly. It was mainly much more easy than I expected. So that's why I can't remember what was difficult about it. I enjoyed it a lot. Of course, there's always difficult times for everybody who is in the robes, but overall I really enjoy it, and I found it very, very peaceful life and very beneficial. Well, now this is probably what was difficult in the beginning, especially after I first came into the robes, is that when in the beginning you're a new monk, it's sometimes hard to have opportunities to share, because you're just a lot by yourself in your hut, and I felt like I was not being productive for the world. I wasn't really doing anything for other people. And I really, at some point, had to realize that my practice in my hut by myself is actually, and I still have to do that from time to time, is actually beneficial for the world at large, because it comes into, it shows later when I teach like this, for example. And that is sometimes difficult to spend so much time by yourself, not because I get lonely, but sometimes because I feel, or I felt sometimes like it was a bit almost like useless in a way for other people. If that makes any sense. If that doesn't make any sense, become a monk and see. Or a nun. Hello and thank you. What's the best way to deal with difficult people? Rawr, remember that one? Who continue the same negative behavior no matter how much love and kindness you show them with metta. Well, sometimes people will stay difficult no matter how kind you are. And you cannot cure all the people. The mouse was very happy that he could cure the angry crocodile by pulling out his tooth. But there's also angry crocodiles who are angry no matter how many teeth you pull out. And the same with people. Some people will keep annoying you, keep angry no matter how much kindness you show them. And then the best way to deal with that is to be at peace with that. You cannot help all people in the world. And to be what the Buddha called equanimous with that as well. And that is another thing you can do. I struggle with visualization during metta. I cannot seem to hold the image well. I try to focus on the feeling of loving kindness, but find it fleeting. Well, at least you found the feeling of loving kindness, right? I said a couple of times during a guided meditation, it will go up and down, it will fluctuate. Wow, that's really good that you found the feeling already in this retreat so quickly. That is really amazing. May I know how to work on this how to work on this. Do I try to focus more on previous experience of loving kindness that I had or felt before? Yeah, I also am not the most visual person. I don't feel like I can imagine things very well. So that's why I also gave the instruction at one point, instead of imagining the person, just imagine the feeling that you get being with them. Instead of just visualizing them with you, imagine the feeling that they give you. If I close my eye, I can't even really imagine the way my mother looks sometimes. But I do very easily can bring up the feeling that I get when I'm with her. So that is something you might want to try and see if that helps. To, instead of visualizing it, is being with the feeling. And it's also the case with metta that if we reach a certain point, you can actually just take that feeling itself and you don't need to visualize anymore, as I said before. And you might try this very early on in your meditation. If you say, I experience certain feelings of metta, but they are fleeting, maybe they are fleeting because you don't focus on the metta, but you try to visualize again. And maybe try instead to see if you can get that little spark of metta and focus on it. And like a little fire that we blow on, to make it bigger, see if you can make the metta bigger just by being with it. And see if you... I was going to teach this at the end, but at the last guided meditation, but I might as well say it now. See if you can have metta for metta. If you can feel loving kindness for the feeling of loving kindness, even if it's tiny and fleeting, see if you can, loving kindness feeling, I really love you, embrace you, and I love it when you're here for me, and I'll be there for you. And then when you have loving kindness for loving kindness, it's like throwing gasoline on the fire, and it becomes really big. And then you don't need to visualize anymore. And now, last question. Can metta lead into jhana? Well, we had that one before as well, and the answer is yes. So, don't think metta meditation is just an auxiliary meditation, something of less importance than other type of meditations. That is not true. It can be very powerful, and there maybe it's not the thing that all of you resonate with, but I'm sure there are at least a couple of you here who might want to make this their main meditation method, maybe. And if that is you, don't worry. The metta meditation is not less than other types of meditations, and they can take you all the way, especially if you, as I said before, let go of the visualization and start focusing on the metta itself. I was going to talk about that at the end, but there you go. Got at least a little preview. All right. Many people struggle with sleepiness. And if I go and talk much longer, then tomorrow you'll all be sleepy as well. So I'm going to end there. And I hope that was at least some answers to your questions. But the real answers don't come from someone like me. I'm just a guide. The real answers come from you. So if I answered your question in some way, you can try my advice. If it doesn't work, there might be other ways to approach it as well. And you can teach yourself in that way. I hope that makes some sense. So take what you think is helpful and disregard all the rest. All right. Let's say some sadhus for the Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. I wanted to do them like a pirate. Sadhu, 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 matey. This is like the wooden leg.